Today, we feel that our duty is to share these achievements with all those who strive to build more open, pluralistic, and democratic societies. I am thinking especially about our southern neighbors in the Mediterranean region, the people of Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, Syria, who fight for authoritarian rule, seeking more freedom, dignity, social justice, and democracy. The changes that are happening in the Arab world, the so-called Arab Spring, are the result of internal causes and most importantly of a shared desire of all people across the world to live in a society such more just both in political and social terms. From this point of view, there is a ground for the optimism because the Arab Spring shows the similarities with the European experience or Europe's experience. It confirms that the values and the principles that we have promoted over the 60 years are universal. The biggest challenge in this region, though, is to make sure that freedom, dignity, and democracy do not remain just slogans on the streets of Tunis, Cairo, or elsewhere. These concepts must be translated into concrete actions, holding a free and fair election, provision of real guarantees for basic rights and freedoms, establishment of the well-functioning democratic institutions and independent judiciary, the fight against corruption, support to free media and civil society. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. Because above all, a democratic transformation is mostly about changing the minds, the attitudes, and the practices. In other words, an immense task. But we are ready to this challenge. Recently, we developed a special tool called Partnership for Democracy, precisely to support our neighbors who share our values and subscribe to our standards. The aim of this strategy is to provide parliaments of non-member states with the wealth of European expertise and best practices. Furthermore, without offering full membership, partnership with the Assembly allows non-member parliamentarians to participate in our work, express their views, share their experiences, and contribute to the development of new standards. The partnership status is not about exporting our vision of democracy. On the contrary, it is about supporting all those who share the common values in their efforts to develop their own models on the basis of shared standards. In June this year, for the first time in the Council of Europe's history, we granted the partnership status to a parliament of non-member states, the Kingdom of Morocco. In 2 weeks' time, our Committee on Political Affairs will be examining an application from Palestine. I hope the conclusion of the committee will be a favorable one and a debate on the granting of the partnership status to Palestine will take place during the October 2005 session. Furthermore, we are actively promoting this new status with Tunisia, and we are helping them to adopt their new laws, election law, and we are training the NGOs and the staff and the bureaucrats that they can have a democratic election for the Constituent Assembly. They are going to held it on 24th October of this year. And we hope that the authorities will officially request for this status when they are ready. We also hope that applications will come from our neighbors in Central Asia. Recently, I paid an official visit to Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan, where I actively promoted this status. And my arguments were positively received, and I hope there will be soon more progress on this front. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, we should nevertheless recognize that Europe, for its part, should also face up to its own responsibilities in the face of this development. I shall just give you one example. The waves of the refugees and irregular migrants fleeing the conflicts in North Africa and seeking refuge in Europe. In a recent debate, our Parliamentary Assembly acknowledged that although the concentration of refugees in certain regions puts them under very strong pressure, and here I think in particular of Malta and the tiny island of Lampedusa, the number of asylum seekers in Europe, in particular those arriving from the southern Mediterranean, shouldn't pose a huge problem for Europe as a whole. Therefore, it should be a common responsibility of all European countries to address this issue and ensure that those seeking international protection should have access to fair and efficient system for the processing of their claims. That said, I must stress that the recent increase in migration flows in the Mediterranean region is not only Europe's problem. It is a genuinely regional issue that affects all of us. While European countries such as Italy, France, Malta, as well as my own country, Turkey, are providing shelter to dozens of thousands of people crossing sea and land borders to escape the ongoing conflict, our southern neighbors in Egypt and Tunisia are confronted with exactly the same problem, with hundreds of thousands of Libyan refugees fleeing their country by land route. I think the European Union countries are particularly exaggerating the numbers of the arrivals coming from North Africa or southern part of the Mediterranean. So far, 36,000 migrants or asylum seekers arrived, and only 11,000 of them asked for asylum. Right now, in Turkey, more than 30,000 Syrians are staying in the camps, and 750,000 Libyans are in Egypt and Tunisia. Those countries are having their internal problem, and plus they are keeping and they are hosting those people coming from Libya. And 30,000, 36,000, and on the other hand, 750,000 people. So we shouldn't exaggerate the numbers that are coming from those countries in North Africa to the European territory. But therefore, the cooperation in the wider European Mediterranean region becomes a key issue for Europe and our neighbors. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to finish my speech by sharing your credo: living together. Living together in the 21st century Europe is the title of a report prepared by a group of eminent people on the basis of an initiative launched by Foreign Minister of Turkey during the Turkish chairmanship of the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe, Ahmet Davutoğlu, and the Council of Europe Secretary General, Torbjörn Jagland. But beyond this, I call it a credo or a philosophy, since this is what has held European nations together since the last World War. And following the events in our Mediterranean neighborhood, this is not only our reality, but also our biggest challenge. Historically, Europe has developed a multicultural society. Yet it is also true that today's multiculturalism faces increasing difficulties, and the issue of discrimination and intolerance has become one of the main challenges. The recent tragic event in Norway shows how fragile our European society in the face of the rise of extremism, racism, and xenophobia. What is even more worrying is that some politicians argue that Victoria and Oslo massacres, that some of the ideas the author of this heinous crime used to justify his actions were good and even excellent. Here I must say that such statements are unacceptable in a democratic society. Politicians bear a special responsibility for eliminating from the political discourse any statements which could justify discrimination, exclusion, or xenophobia. Of course, I am not saying we shouldn't discuss the challenges of European multiculturalism. On the contrary, it becomes an urgent address than in the open debate as we do it in the Assembly in order to find together the right response. And our response should be a truly intercultural approach, which allows culturally different groups within society to interact in order to develop the best model of living together. Different cultures of specific groups should be preserved and their specificities incorporated in the common European framework. Immigration shouldn't be seen as a threat, but as an opportunity to learn from each other's differences and experiences. Therefore, governments should put in place measures to support integration. But integration will be successful only if there is a reciprocal commitment. People coming lawfully to live in the country shouldn't be expected to leave their elements of their identity, faith, language, culture behind. However, they are expected to show their willingness to integrate into society of the new country by not only learning this language, but also gaining knowledge and understanding of the local culture. This brings me to the most topical sectors of the activity of the Assembly, as well as one of the key political priorities of my mandate. This is intercultural and interreligious dialogue. This is the most effective tool in the fight racism, xenophobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, and all kinds of phobia. In April 2011, the Assembly held a very interesting debate on the religious dimension of intercultural dialogue with the participation of representatives of different religions, Catholic, Protestant, Orthodox, Muslim, and Jewish. It was the first time in our history that they were sitting together in the chamber. It was a really moving moment to see leaders of the Christian, Muslim, and Jewish communities share their belief that societies can only prosper if we promote respect and mutual understanding between people, strengthen solidarity between individuals and communities, as well as reinforce social cohesion.